like what would be the main problem with respiratory acidosis? What would be the main problem with respiratory alkalosis? Obviously, you're telling me you would have hypoventilation with a high CO2, hyperventilation with a low CO2. So you guys should all be fine with that. Everybody should understand the hydrolysis equation, where we talk about water combines with CO2 to make what kind of an acid?
Carbonic.
And what kind of acid is carbonic acid?
Volatile.
A volatile acid. And then it breaks down to
CO2 and
hydrogen and bicarb. Okay, on the kidney side, the hydrogen and the bicarb are what kind of acids? Fixed acids. And what does fixed acids do?
Well, they're non-volatile.
They're non-volatile, and do they react quickly?
No.
No,
Slowly.
They're much slower. Okay, so so you want to be able to do all that good stuff there. Now remember, what on the respiratory side makes the reaction go faster?
The CO2. Is that what you mean?
What on the lung side, what makes the reaction go faster? There's an enzyme on that side.
Oh, the
Carbonic anhydrase. Okay. Okay. The other day in class, I kind of told you to know the definition of what a buffer is and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you know what a definition of an acid is, a buffer is. Know the difference between the non-bicarbonate buffering system and the bicarbonate buffering system. Know the difference between open and closed. I kind of think I did that really good yesterday. Know which buffers have the biggest one.
Say that one more time. The buffer what?
Which buffer system has the greatest capacity? Which one has? Which one does CO2 carry the most? Where is CO2 carried the most? Know the difference between buffering and compensation. Okay, know the difference between that. So in your non-bicarb and bicarb buffering system, each one has one that's the most important in that one. Know who's the important in each one.
So the non-bicarbonate one is CO2. No, the bicarbonate is the bicarb.
Right.
And then the non-bicarbonate is everything else. The
Phosphates.
The phosphates and all those.
the
Hemoglobin.
hemoglobin.
Yep,
Okay.
and the hemoglobin. Good. So if I said to you, you've got extra hydrogen ions in the blood, what's the first line of defense that the body has to make it so that those hydrogen ions don't affect the pH? What happens first?
It starts to compensate.
Well, the
Compensation
pH.
doesn't happen first. What happens first?
Fixing it.
First you have buffering. Remember, the body's going to buffer first, and then if it can't do that, then it compensates. So your first line of defense is always the buffering, okay? What systems are affected by the pH?
systems.
The Henderson-Hasselbalch equation has two. What are the two systems that are affected by the pH?
The
The
lungs and the kidneys.
lungs and the kidneys, that's
Oh, I
right.
thought that was too
I know,
easy.
I was thinking too hard about it.
No, don't think about that, okay? So then I'm going to ask you questions about the kidneys and the lungs, and I'm going to expect that you know that the kidneys can excrete 24,000 milliequivalents per day.
Also know those.
The kidneys are much slower. They're only like 50 to 70 milliequivalents per day. Know that the kidneys can either excrete or hold on to acid, or hold on or excrete bicarb. Make sure you know all those things. All right, the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation is going to be on there. I
Like that
expect
we
you.
need to recognize it.
You need to recognize it. You need to know what it means. Okay, you need to know what its definition is. Know who's in the numerator and who's in the denominator, and what each one of those represents. Okay, and then what you need to understand is what happens when it becomes acidotic and what happens when it becomes alkalotic. So your ratio is changing. Okay, so know what happens to your ratio, your pH. If I asked you which one would be a state of alkalemia, you could tell me a low CO2 or a high bicarb.
Does
Okay,
it, and it follows the pH, right?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So now, on the exam, pay attention, because I'm going to ask you what the chemical event is going to be and what the compensatory event is going to be. The chemical event is going to be the one that's affected. So if I said to you, what's the chemical event in metabolic alkalosis, what would you tell me?
The kidneys are affected.
What did the bicarb do?
It increases.
Increases. Good. If I asked you, what's the chemical event in respiratory acidosis, what are you going to tell me?
CO2.
CO2.
And it increased.
And if I asked you what is the compensatory mechanism for metabolic alkalosis, you would tell me it's
It's the opposite.
Respiratory.
respiratory
Respiratory
acidosis.
acidosis.
Okay, good. There's a bunch on that. Okay,
Yeah, giving examples helps to connect it.
right. Absolutely. I will ask you a couple of questions on if the CO2 goes up by 10, the pH goes down, and they're going to give it to you by, you've got a PCO2 that is now 70 and your pH is whatever. Is this a true change, or is something else going on? So they're expecting you to see that, and they're expecting you to know that the bicarb's going to go up by 1. So they're going to ask you that, but not which is it, by giving you a blood gas and expecting you to do it that way.
Do we have to calculate out the 0.08?
Yep.
Okay.
And it will be very easy. It's not going to be hard, but you just have to know it. If you don't know it, then you're going to get it wrong. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that. Then it gives you some blood gas results that you expect to know. I'm going to ask you the causes of all 4 things, and I'm going to ask you the signs and symptoms of all 4 things. So you should know what causes metabolic acidosis, what causes metabolic acidosis, what causes respiratory acidosis, and what causes respiratory alkalosis.
So those
Okay.
boxes in the chapter.
Those boxes in the chapter are so important, okay?
And then I save it on my computer.
Is it going to primarily be Egan, or is it going to primarily be the pink book?
It's kind of
a
actually,
combination?
both of them are the same thing,
Yeah.
just, they're just saying it differently. Because, like I said, Egan is written by Nietzsche, who does it in 3 chapters. I forget who wrote the pink chapter, I know. And
Shaletti.
Shaletti. And he does it in 1 chapter, but I find him to be an easier reading.